Each evening, the pilots vow to safeguard humanity. Jorek Vorten shattered that pledge. His form now melds inseparably with his combat engine. Every victory sustains the metallic entity's craving. The contests within the Eye of Terror rage on without cease, and the cruelest twist is his pleas for release, denied by overlords who thrive on his torment. I recall the era when my skin was wholly mine, when the neural links would detach, allowing me to step from my night with my natural limbs. Those recollections seem like artifacts from a distant existence, shards of an individual I barely acknowledge these days. I am Jor Vorten. Formerly an esteemed pilot from House Vorten, I devoted myself to the Imperium without question, my night marching over war zones to uphold the Emperor's decree. We commanded respect. We, the Knights of House Vorten. Our banners instilled dread in mankind's foes and comfort to imperial folk hiding from extraterrestrial perils. I held my head high. I remained devoted. I was deceived. These days, I obey different lords. The cables that linked me to my night in battle have pierced my tissue, intertwined with my sinews, supplanted my veins. The command seat blurs into my physique without boundary. We form a single entity. Oathbreaker and I, a hideous merger of flesh and steel, sealed by the gifts of the ruinous forces. I traverse the blood-soaked expanses of a demon realm buried in the Eye of Terror. The terrain warps according to the whims of invisible deities, rust-hewn peaks dissolving into pools of petroleum and gore that seethe beneath an eclipsed heaven. In this place, I battle not for valor or obligation, but compelled by the murmur echoing in my brain. The murmur emerging from the alloy that hums to me as I pulverize adversaries under Oathbreaker's treads. This day, we pursue prey. The games commence shortly, and my rulers demand an impressive performance. I sense Oathbreaker's appetite gnawing within my thoughts, an unquenchable lust for carnage that now blends seamlessly with my impulses. At what point did its craving merge with mine? When did I cease battling the urge for slaughter? The enclosure surrounding me has lost its former purity and sanctity. The invocations to the machine spirit and rites of the Mechanicus have yielded to profane emblems that throb with foul illumination. They sting my gaze upon contact, yet I find myself unable to avert it. The agony serves as proof that a fragment of my humanity endures, even as that sliver diminishes daily. Via the night's augmented vistas, I observe the Colosseum forming. Thralls, human and automated alike, hasten over the field, raising warped tributes to the dark powers. Their frames shatter beneath the load of iron and rock they bear. Yet they persist, spurred by the lashes of supervisors or the symphony of demon mechanisms within their skulls. My rival fighters are gathering, knights from assorted tainted lineages, their former glorious insignias now marred by sacrilegious marks. Their plating tainted by chaos's influence. Some I know from prior clashes and campaigns. Others represent recent arrivals, newly sworn to the road of perdition. We avoid tales of our old days. The history is a gash that refuses to close, and probing it merely summons insanity, though insanity claims us in time. In the hushed intervals amid fights, when the murmurs fade to murmurs, I occasionally catch the cries of those I've forsaken. The inhabitants of Vortan Prime, who once viewed me as their guardian, their visages materialize on my screens, shimmering like specters trapped in limbo. Males, females, youths, all bearing looks of dread as they grasp that their valiant shield has turned into their slayer. I recollect the moment of my downfall. House Vortan was sent to shield an agri-world from a Xenos invasion. The conflict raged intensely, but ended in triumph. As we lingered amid the remains of the foreign menace, assessing the havoc we'd unleashed, a sensation invaded my consciousness. Not the usual bond with my knight's machine spirit, but an ancient, shadowed force. It promised strength unbound by imperial limits, liberation from duty's yoke. It revealed illusions of the Imperium's deceptions, the Emperor's duplicity, the pointlessness of our perpetual wars. I pushed back initially. I informed our house's sacristan, who ordered ceremonial purification and supplication. But the entity endured, amplifying with every night. It exploited the fissures in my belief and expanded them with vows of splendor and grim realities. When I comprehended the taint's hold, reversal was impossible. The following mission arrived, and rather than confronting the foe, I directed Oathbreaker's weapons at my comrades. The astonishment in their vox signals lingers in my memory, their bewilderment swiftly turning to revulsion as they perceived my transformation. 3 honorable knights of House Vorton perished by my fire that day, their operators howling charges of treachery as their cores overloaded. The Imperium's counterstrike came rapidly. Knights from adjacent houses mobilized to pursue and eliminate me. We escaped into the warp, led by the voice that had turned into my unwavering guide. The voyage shattered the last fragments of my mind. Time dissolved into irrelevance as Oathbreaker and I wandered through that roiling abyss. Upon our arrival, we were transformed. The boundaries separating pilot from knight had faded. Alterations had gripped us firmly, twisting both Oathbreaker's frame and my physical form. We ended up in the Eye of Terror, surrounded by fellow outcasts who had tumbled into ruin like us. Some arrived by choice, lured by chaos's seductive vows. Others, myself included, succumbed bit by bit, their defiance eroded by murmurs and uncertainties. We all pledge allegiance to identical overlords now, clashing in these perpetual contests for their entertainment and to demonstrate our value. The tournament setup is finalized. A trumpet blares, its jarring tones slicing the atmosphere like a tangible blow. The moment has come. Oathbreaker's mechanisms pulse with eagerness, his armaments whir to life, thermal cannon priming, chainsaw buzzing as the motors in his limbs coil, ready to launch the pursuit. I'm pitted against a warrior from the remnants of House Terran. His plating, formerly a noble azure, now bears a foul emerald hue, marred by festering boils that ooze acidic slime. Nurgle has ensnared this fighter, endowing him with endurance far exceeding human limits. This clash will test us severely, yet Oathbreaker and I harbor no dread of loss. We dread solely the sting of letdown. Our lords show no mercy to underperformers. The battlefield stretches endlessly. A wasteland of shattered war engines and colossal beast skeletons. Puddles of mysterious sludge speckle the ground. Some shimmer with eerie radiance, others as black as oblivion. The atmosphere hangs heavy with the stench of promethium, corrosion, and rot. It lodges in my senses, even though I no longer draw breath like ordinary beings. My rival advances with unexpected agility despite his plague-ridden state. His knight charges ahead, unleashing a salvo from its war cannon. The projectiles explode nearby, hurling sprays of jagged scrap. Oathbreaker reacts without delay, our actions in flawless harmony. We evade the heaviest onslaught and counter with a blast from our thermal cannon. The searing ray hits the Nurgle Knight dead center in the torso. A standard Imperial Knight would crumple from such damage. Yet this abomination only reels briefly. The gash in its hull froths and spits, releasing toxic fumes from deep inside. Then, against all odds, repair begins, the alloy melting and reshaping like molten tallow to mend the rift. We'll need a closer assault. I urge Oathbreaker into a sprint, narrowing the gap swiftly. Our chainsaw howls with ravenous intent as we slash in a lethal sweep. The Nurgle Knight hoists its melee arm, a colossal flail encrusted with corroded barbs to block. The collision jars Oathbreaker deeply, and the jolt reverberates through my integrated form. Agony flares within, but it's laced with a thrill I've grown to link with battle. This is our new essence, this rhythm of ruin, this bond forged in brutality. We exchange strikes, locked in stalemate. My thermal cannon unleashes repeated volleys, scorching off slabs of tainted plating only for them to regrow. His war cannon batters Oathbreaker's barriers until they waver and collapse. Before long, we're both damaged, spilling corrosives that hiss on contact with the soil. At last, a vulnerability appears. His knight falters on the jagged landscape, teetering off-kilter for an instant. That's our cue. Oathbreaker surges in, chainsaw tearing into the vulnerable seam where limb joins body. The enormous teeth chew through circuits, cabling, and the grotesque tissue lurking in that tainted husk. The Nurgle Knight topples, limbs hacked away. Even so, it struggles on, hauling itself closer, guns blazing in futile rage. I harbor only disdain for such frailty. Oathbreaker advances and crushes down upon the downed knight's cabin with crushing force. There's a brief yield, followed by a grotesque snap. Emerald ichor erupts from the mangled enclosure, drenching Oathbreaker's struts. Triumph. The euphoric wave of slaughter washes over me, a boon from the chaos deities for my devotion. Oathbreaker absorbs the essence of our vanquished foe, and so do I. A flood of vigor that briefly overwhelms the perpetual torment of our state. The spectators encircling the field erupt in cheers. Fanatics, fiends, and kindred renegade knights revel in the carnage display. Their clamor merges into a deafening roar that hammers my mind. I hoist Oathbreaker's armament in salute, fulfilling my role in this farce of perdition. Yet the win rings empty. It invariably does, another slaying in an infinite chain of slaughter. Another fleeting illusion of fulfillment that evaporates, leaving just the craving for the next. This is the allure of the warrior's road. Endless strife devoid of meaning, might without serenity. As I steer Oathbreaker away from the field, a peculiar sight catches my eye. Among the faces that glow on my screen, echoes of those I've slain. There's a fresh face among them, the Nurgle Knight's pilot, his visage still clear amid the decay that devoured him. His gaze condemns me, not for ending his life, but for mirroring his own path. Yet another noble brought low, another pawn to deities indifferent to our plight. He's correct. I stand no taller than the foes I've crushed. We're all ensnared in identical torment, clashing for the entertainment of entities forever beyond our grasp. Such insight offers no solace, merely intensifies the gloom that's now my shadow. In the containment bays, servitors buzz around Oathbreaker, mending the scars from combat. Their motions are mechanical and swift, swapping out ruined armor, patching fluid leaks, restocking munitions. Each contact on Oathbreaker's frame registers like a brush against my flesh, some sharp with ache, others a muted thrill. Everyone underscores my descent from mortal roots. Once the fixes are done, solitude returns, heavy with reflection. This interval proves the hardest. The quiet lulls post-clash, bereft of fight's frenzy. The murmurs intensify. Oathbreaker communicates through pulses, visions, compulsions rather than speech. It reveals glimpses of conflicts ahead, triumphs awaiting claim. It vows that every conquest draws us nearer to apotheosis, to merging with the chaos gods outright. Yet, under its rumble, softer but relentless, lingers my inner voice, the fading echo of the person I used to be, holding fast to ideals of integrity, obligation, absolution. This murmur urges self-destruction, directing our arsenal inward to shatter this horror. But Oathbreaker forbids it, our overlords forbid it. Within the endless torment of bondage, my anguish serves as their tribute. Slumber eludes me these days, and when it arrives, it delivers no relief. My visions unfold as war-torn arenas, perpetual combat fields where I battle not only adversaries, but my fractured self. At times, I'm revisiting Vorten Prime, pursued by old comrades over vast grasslands. In others, surreal realms born of the warp alone, clashing with abominations beyond words. This night, reverie pulls me to origins. Not the ruined shell it's likely turned into, but the Vorten Prime of my early years. I roam its avenues as a mere human, untouched by knighthood. Citizens nod and smile in passing, blind to my looming fate. I strain to alert them, to urge escape before my shadow engulfs all, yet silence seals my lips. Abruptly, the scene warps. Vorten Prime's structures ooze blood. Pathways flood with lubricant and ichor. The folk mutate, flesh ripping to expose gears within. Their stares blaze with the profane gleam that bathes Oathbreaker's chamber. They extend hands not in terror, but kinship. They perceive my transformation, my new essence, and embrace me as kin. I jolt awake in a howl, though my organic throat was ages ago swapped for vox emitters. The synthetic wail reverberates through Oathbreaker's enclosure, a grating, warped noise far from mortal woe. The nightmare clings, its portents too dire to face. Might my ruin signal more than personal loss, a omen of greater calamity? Has all of Vorten Prime tumbled into perdition alongside me? Answers evade me. The eye of terror severs ties to the wider cosmos, especially for wretches like myself. I'm severed from every familiarity, confined to this feverish domain, accompanied solely by remorse and Oathbreaker's timbre. Quote Nor. Arrives, though the term rings hollow where chronology bends like clay. The glow mimicking day here twists unhealthily, spawning shadows that dance free of their casters. It bathes the terrain nearby, a ravine littered with shattered war engines, extending to jagged peaks like serrated ridges. A fresh tourney awaits, another shot to affirm our value to the overlords. Fellow knights assemble, their warped silhouettes etched against the eerie radiance. Each displays their divine patron's stigma, their former grandeur contorted to echo the force they channel. I spot a figure from my imperial past, his identity hazy in memory. His plating, once a bold scarlet, now churns through a dizzying spectrum of hues that strain the sight. Tinch has ensnared this soul, endowing him with arcane might that mocks natural order. His thermal lance no longer spews flame, but torrents of warping force that reshape targets into bizarre forms. Beside him stands one branded by Khorne, his frame bristling with trophies of bone and edges, all facets crafted for slashing and rending. The rider shows through the exposed throne, merged with it as I am to mine. Yet he's surrendered deeper. He's excised his features, donning a brazen visor that apes his knight's frontal shield. Blood seeps endlessly from the joints, where steel fuses with flesh, a perpetual offering to the blood god. Another champion bows to Slaanesh, its frame gliding with an elegance that defies the bulk of such a colossal construct. The plating has been molded into sinuous contours, evoking both male and female silhouettes. Countenances bulge from the interior metal, frozen in raptures of bliss or torment, or perhaps a blend of the two. Their collective groans echo over the field of combat, a bewildering chorus that erodes the focus of his foes. Then come those sworn to no particular deity, but to the raw essence of chaos itself. These may prove the deadliest, unbound by the fixations of a solitary overlord. They wage war with a deliberate accuracy that masks the insanity gripping their minds. Today, I face one such warrior. A knight clad in a mosaic of rival house insignias, plundered from vanquished adversaries, spoils dangle from his chassis, armaments and standards seized from slain pilots. Everyone bears witness to his prowess in the fray. His command pod lies exposed to the winds, disclosing not a mortal operator, but a tangle of squirming tendrils that link straight into the machine's core. The arena shifts today. It's a stretch of the wastes reshaped into a mirror-like expanse of obsidian sheen. It extends endlessly, utterly level, denying shelter or edge to any fighter. This duel demands sheer mastery and might, just as our lords intend. The start signal arrives not via trumpet, but through a mental surge that blurs my sight and fractures my focus. As clarity returns, my rival surges ahead, his knight skimming the glassy plain at impossible velocity. His main gun erupts, projectiles trailing vibrant vapor wakes as they curve my way. Oathbreaker reacts instinctively. Before I can even will a dodge, we veer aside, the blasts striking our prior spot. The slick ground fractures yet holds firm, cracks radiating in motifs resembling fiendish visages that mock us from below. I counter with our heat ray, unleashing a torrent of plasma fierce enough to dissolve indestructible alloys. He's swift, yet insufficiently so. The strike clips his port pauldron, fusing it into molten drool that cascades along his limb like melting tallow. The appendages in his pod convulse in frenzy, and a telepathic wail of fury and hurt pierces my mind like a cleaver. He barrels in, narrowing the gap with terrifying haste. His reaper blade howls as he lashes it sideways toward Oathbreaker's midsection. We block with our own saw, the serrated edges clashing in a burst of embers. The clamor overwhelms, a tangible pressure that sets the mirror floor humming in resonance. Our powers balance perfectly, each unable to dominate. For an instant, we're fused in deadlock, colossal engines pitted against one another amid the spectators' frenzied roars. Then, without words, we break apart, retreating a pace to gauge anew. Something odd catches my eye. As we prowl in circles, the shiny floor reflects not our present shapes, but echoes of our past selves. In the dark polish, Oathbreaker appears as in our uncorrupted days, his shell radiant with House Vortan's noble hues, free from taint. My foe beholds a parallel vision, judging by his downward stare and the ensuing mental cry, this one laced with a hint of sorrow. That brief lapse is my opening. Oathbreaker surges, our blade targeting not his frame, but the vulnerable coils in his pod. The enormous edge bites deep, lopping off a cluster of the twisting limbs. Ichor gushes from the gashes, hissing on contact with Oathbreaker's scorching panels. My adversary reels, his knight's motions turning disjointed. The surviving tendrils lash about chaotically, no longer unified, but clashing in discord. A few press the assault, while others urge withdrawal, yielding spasmodic, clashing actions that expose his flanks. I exploit the breach, loosing a volley from Oathbreaker's full arsenal. Plasma lance, autocannons, and rocket launchers blaze together, saturating his faltering shields. His scavenged plating unravels in the onslaught, bearing the twisted mechanisms inside. Yet he persists, one limb dangling limp, the other still brandishing his saw with lethal finesse. He lashes out haphazardly, compelling me to yield terrain against the flailing edge, but his actions grow wilder, the internal strife of his controllers intensifying. Quote 1. Oathbreaker concurs. Our intents synchronize, though our drives differ. I crave triumph merely to endure. Another day slips by, delaying the grim destiny that befalls losers in these brutal contests. He craves it for the thrill of slaughter, for the homage it delivers to our shadowy overlords. We surge forward, dodging a frantic swipe from his chainsaw that carves a nasty gash into Oathbreaker's left pauldron. Then plunge our own weapons straight into his cockpit. The blade rips apart the tangle of tentacles, smashing them into a mush of gore and chitin. Cut off from their direction, his machine locks up, every system failing at once. For an instant, he stands frozen like a monument amid the chaos of war. Then, gradually, he keels over, slamming into the glassy floor with a force that shatters it at last. Fractures radiate from the crash site, chunks of the mirror-like substance peeling off to expose an endless abyss below. I pull back in haste, unwilling to meet the same end. But it's too late. I see it's all a setup. The fissures pursue me, sprouting under Oathbreaker's boots quicker than we can escape. Suddenly, we're plummeting, spiraling down into oblivion with nothing to halt the drop. The emptiness engulfs us, and for what feels like forever, we hurtle through utter void. No glow, no noise, just the relentless tug of gravity. Then, without warning, we smash onto firm earth, the jolt rattling every inch of my merged frame. Alert symbols flicker on my screen, signaling harm to multiple of Oathbreaker's components. Not fatal, yet we're compromised. As my sight clears, I perceive we're in an immense cavern below ground. Overhead, the dark pane we broke through has mended itself flawlessly, mirroring only shadows. The space glows from basins of glowing liquid that pulse with an unsettling rhythm across the scene. And company awaits us. More knights populate the place, scores of them etched with chaos brands, scarred from fresh combats. Some patrol warily, arms primed, others slump in ruin, their drivers exposed in unsealed cabins, bonded to their hulks just as I'm fused to mine. This isn't some fluke or arena glitch. It's the tournament's subsequent stage, a free-for-all in this subterranean nightmare. Just one survivor gets to climb back topside and revel in the dark deity's grace. The others linger forever, clashing in the gloom, abandoned even by their merciless lords. That truth ought to spark terror in me, but a peculiar serenity settles in instead. Isn't this my due? A just reckoning for my disloyalty, for the souls I've claimed? Maybe down here, beyond the chaos god's piercing stare, I could at last uncover release from my torment. Or maybe it's just deeper into the inferno I've forged. Oathbreaker disagrees. His circuits revive, more robust than prior. The injuries from our plunge mend on their own, plates fusing anew, cut cables rejoining. His appetite surges fiercer within me, zeroed in on the surrounding knights, endless foes, boundless chances for triumph. In his cybernetic thoughts, this isn't penalty but prospect. I struggle against it, clinging to the scraps of my autonomy in our joint shell. Pointless. Oathbreaker's might has swelled through our endless bondage. Mine has faded, my human essence crumbling with every horror we unleash. He seizes the reins without effort, quashing my bids to hold position. We advance on the closest foe, a Nurgle-tainted behemoth akin to our prior victim. It spots us coming and pivots, armaments humming to life. Before shots fly, a fourth knight bursts into the clash. This one's sworn to Khorne. It barrels in wildly, buzzing chainswords whir on its limbs. In moments, the whole cavern erupts in frenzy. Warriors blast at any stir. They form fleeting pacts, only to shatter them seconds after. They battle with a frenzy, fueled by the certainty of a single exit. The atmosphere rings with clanging steel. The stench of promethium and ionized air, the mental wails of the perishing. Oathbreaker wages war with an accuracy I've never witnessed. Every motion optimized for peak output, each shot timed to strike foes off guard. We endure hits naturally. No one emerges untouched from such turmoil, but we deal out far greater ruin. Adversaries crumple around us. Their warped bodies can't withstand Oathbreaker's rage. With every vanquish, the surge of might from sating our patrons washes over me. Yet now there's more, an expanding detachment, as though I'm viewing it all from afar. No longer involved, just a bystander. Is this my ultimate fate? Total merger into Oathbreaker. My mind shrunk to a mere rider in a form beyond my command, or something graver. The utter erasure of who I am, reduced to an empty shell for Chaos's whims. The fight drags on relentlessly, with the ranks of battling knights thinning out rapidly. Down to 5 survivors, then 4, and soon, just 3. Oathbreaker squares off against a twisted knight warped by Sinch's influence, commanding abilities that twist the very fabric of existence, while a hulking devotee of Slaanesh looms nearby, his every gesture unleashing surges of intoxicating ecstasy that nearly drown my perceptions. The trio of us prowls around one another cautiously, fully aware of the danger each presents. Silence has settled over the room, broken only by the sprawl of defeated warriors' corpses across the floor, their spilling ichor blending into the glowing puddles to spawn hues that defy natural law. Suddenly, the vaulted roof overhead stirs. The obsidian panes undulate like water disturbed by a skipped pebble. A thunderous voice echoes from all directions, yet none, uttering words in an alien tongue that I can't grasp, linguistically but instinctively decipher. It's one of the overlords, a daemon prince supervising these spectacles. He relishes the spectacle we've staged, yet tires of the deadlock. Just one can emerge victorious, he proclaims, and the resolution demands immediacy. To spur us into action, he starts compressing the space above, the dark panes easing downward with unyielding deliberation. Alarm erupts throughout the arena. The Tench Knight unleashes frantic blasts, his distorting forces scattering uselessly off our plating. The Slaanesh warrior lunges at the Sench adherent, maybe viewing him as the softer prey. Their impact reverberates through the space, locking in a fierce clinch as the roof presses on relentlessly. Oathbreaker spots a vulnerability and seizes it. As the pair fixates on their duel, we maneuver to the side, powering up the heat ray. From mere inches away, we unleash the blast straight into the Slaanesh Knight's core compartment. The blazing lance pierces the barrier, and briefly, silence reigns. Then, the core detonates catastrophically. The blast hurls us all tumbling through the air. Alarms blare as failures cascade across Oathbreaker's structure. Alerts swarm my interface beyond my ability to track. One limb is utterly offline, the other scarcely operational. Our portside appendage dangles uselessly, its mounted tool reduced to mangled scrap. Solely our starboard arm, clutching the links, functions without issue. The Sench Knight suffers far graver harm. The burst strikes him head-on, shredding his shell and burying the operator inside. No longer mortal, but a churning blob of tissue forever reshaping itself. In one instant, a visage howls in torment, the next, coiling appendages, then an indescribable abomination. The chaotic forces that fueled his arsenal now devour him internally. His shape refuses to stabilize in any form. Death claims him unmistakably. His frame scatters in fragments nearby, the core casing ruptured yet contained. The blast's rage expelled externally, sparing the interior further ruin. He won't resurface, nor will we, unless mobility returns. The roof's advance persists, now midway to the base. That's when an oddity catches my eye. A narrow panel unseals in the decking close to the Slaanesh Knight's rupture site. Up emerges a dais bearing a cloaked silhouette, neither knight nor daemon, but a hybrid of sorts. It beckons toward the opening, a clear summons to flee. Does this tie into the games, maybe a culminating trial, or an outsider's meddling for hidden agendas? No answers surface. Yet with the compression accelerating mere feet overhead, choices dwindle. I fight to reclaim command of Oathbreaker. This time, he yields without pushback, likely sensing our peril as acutely. Through sheer willpower, we haul toward the panel. Every shift ignites jolts of agony across our linked nerves. The saw-edged chain props us like a staff, gouging the surface to inch ahead when limbs betray. The cloaked form observes without emotion as we near. In proximity, I realize no fabric conceals it. Its skull is a voided mantle, shadow-swallowing features, sporadically illuminated by inner glimmers akin to far-off storms. It utters no sound, yet its urgency conveys to me. The barrier hovers, scant meters distant, velocity mounting. In a last desperate push, we clamber aboard the dais. At once, it plunges, whisking us from the fray precisely as the roof crashes into the ground with a roar evoking oblivion. The tench knight emits a parting, mind-bending wail, followed by void and the pull of falling. The dais plummets for what feels like an eternity, time irrelevant amid the warp. At length, it decelerates, halting in a secondary vault, more compact than the prior, yet expansive for mortal measures. Illumination here comes not from organic glows, but stark artificial beams, their piercing white, exposing all with unforgiving precision. It resembles a forge of some kind, though distinct from I've witnessed nothing quite like this in my past experiences. Servitors bustle around with clear intent, hauling instruments and spare parts. Tech priests supervise the operations, though they're far from the crimson-robed experts of the Mechanicus I remember. Their robes are ebony, their cybernetic enhancements far more invasive, their motions revealing an effortless harmony with their implants that the Mechanicus, for all their machine devotion, could never quite master. These are the dark Mechanicus, the tech priests who sided with Horus in his uprising and now bend their skills to the ruinous powers, forging demon engines and grotesque horrors. They regard Oathbreaker with keen analytical curiosity, evaluating the wreckage, estimating what's recoverable and what needs outright substitution. The cloaked leader signals, and the servitors descend upon us in a wave. They connect conduits to key spots on Oathbreaker's chassis, linking straight into my neural ports. A torrent of information rushes in both directions. They're probing our mechanisms while we glimpse their motives. Their goal is to mend us. That's unmistakable. Yet the question lingers. Why? What role do we fulfill that deems us salvageable amid the countless wrecks abandoned to oblivion? The response arrives not through speech, but via vivid visions streaming through the data link into my consciousness. I behold a distant war zone, remote from the eye of terror's gaze. Loyalist troops battle a chaos raiding force. Armored knights clash on either flank. But these tainted knights differ from the foes I've dueled in the arenas. They operate in flawless unison, as though steered by a unified intellect. Their assaults land with unerring accuracy, their tactics impeccable. Victory comes swiftly, driving the Imperial lines into retreat without resistance. Then, the viewpoint alters, unveiling their orchestrator. A colossal silhouette, a knight surpassing any I've met in stature, its plating adorned with icons of all four Chaos gods, yet beholden to none in particular. It commands the rest through psychic channels, each subordinate an appendage of its directive. A Night Lord twisted by corruption into an unprecedented entity. And it dawns on me. The tournaments aren't just spectacles or measures of merit. They're culls, weeding out the frail, spotlighting the potent. Survivors displaying the ideal blend of prowess and taint don't earn liberation. They're conscripted into a fresh bondage. They integrate into this overlord's marauding host, limbs of his psyche, instruments in the endless crusade against the Imperium. Is this my destiny? Exchanging one yoke of captivity for another, surrendering the scant shreds of my selfhood, reduced to a mere tool in someone else's grasp. The notion stirs deep disgust, a spark of lingering humanity buried in my armored husk. Yet Oathbreaker senses differently. I detect his thrill at the opportunity, his zeal to enlist in this superior legion. To him, it's no subjugation. It's elevation, a shot at engaging in conflicts of true import, extending our patron's reach past the eye of terror's borders. The servitors finish their diagnostics and commence the fixes. They labor with terrifying precision, excising ruined elements and installing fresh substitutes that mesh perfectly with our framework. Certain parts scream imperial provenance, pilfered or scavenged from toppled knights. Others bear Xenos marks, alien tech twisted to honor the dark deities. Some elude definition altogether, cultivated instead of built, throbbing with inherent vitality. The agony is unbearable. In contrast to standard imperial overhauls which might suppress my pain signals or mute them, these dark Mechanicus practitioners offer no mercy. They hold that suffering sharpens focus, fortifies the link between rider and chassis. Perhaps they're on to something. I've never been so acutely attuned to every conduit, every fiber, every panel of Oathbreaker's structure as I am in this moment. Hours blur into days, or so it feels. Time remains an elusive haze. At last, the work concludes. Circuits once irreparably fried now hum at maximum output. Armaments obliterated beyond repair have yielded to superior, deadlier variants. Oathbreaker's very silhouette has evolved, refined, and honed for his impending duties in the warband. The Cloaked One reappears, flanked by fellow heretics. They encircle us, their shadowed hoods fixed upon us with eerie focus. Then, in unison, they extend their palms to Oathbreaker's exterior. A warp-born jolt surges through our fused nerves, erasing cognition and feeling for an instant. When clarity reemerges, a shift has occurred. I sense the essences of fellow knights, remote yet vivid. Not mere positional data, but insights into their conditions, their musings, their aims. A web binds us together, with the Knight Commander as its nexus. His awareness envelops everyone. It's a terror and a rush in tandem to merge into an entity grander than the individual, to escape solitary brooding and remorse forever, yet forfeit the ultimate sliver of solitude, the thin divide separating my former self from this warped existence. Oathbreaker dives into it wholeheartedly. I can sense his contentment as he merges with the collective, exchanging our past encounters, our abilities, and the insights we've gained about imperial strategies from our former existence. He offers it all without hesitation, withholding nothing. I strive to mirror that openness, attempting to fully accept this reborn state just as he has. Yet a fragment of me resists, clinging to a tiny enclave of awareness separate from the hive. My last refuge were the recollections of my old self, my actions, and the reasons for my downfall stay exclusively mine. It's a minor rebellion, but it's the only thing remaining to me. Naturally, the Knight Commander detects it. His influence in my thoughts is immense, timeless beyond measure, mightier than anything graspable. He's waged the endless conflict right from the heresy era, his true identity lost to history, supplanted by the moniker bestowed by his devotees. The Undivided, they name him, since he pledges allegiance to every chaotic force, yet to none specifically. Drawing what he requires from each, loyal to no one, he examines my isolated holdout, not battering through but observing it with cool intrigue. I detect a hint of mirth from him, though the sentiment is so otherworldly, so distant from mortal emotions, that the term falls short. He opts to tolerate my rebellion, viewing it not as danger but as an oddity, maybe even a valuable quality for select operations. Then he pulls back, shifting focus to readying for the impending clash. Via the link, I glimpse the objective, a forge world teetering on the fringe of imperial territory, its fortifications robust yet assailable. its stockpiles immense and crucial to multiple adjacent sectors. Seizing it would deliver a major setback to the Imperium, severing logistics chains and blocking their supply of the unique alloys manufactured there. The warband must launch within the hour. The Dark Mechanicum has outfitted a vessel, a twisted take on an Imperial hauler spacious enough for scores of knights. We'll hit them unannounced, bursting from the warp straight into the planet's orbital path, dropping to the ground before the guards can mount a counter. Servitors usher us toward the embarkation hold, where fellow knights stand ready. I spot familiar ones from the arenas, now mended like us, their structures modified to align with their fresh allegiance. Some are strangers, seasoned members of the warband, eyeing the arrivals with a blend of scorn and eagerness. We're untried, unvetted, yet we bring renewed vigor for the fights ahead. The Knight Commander looms isolated, his colossal frame overshadowing even the mightiest among us. His plating etches the marks of 10,000 years of combat, every one a mark of glory, proof of his endurance. He connects with each through the mesh, designating spots, outlining duties, and setting the command structure that will direct our combat moves. Oathbreaker and I get tasked as breachmakers, leveraging our velocity and armament to tear gaps in the Imperial barriers, paving the way for the elite knights to hit vital facilities. It fits Oathbreaker's bold temperament, though I suspect it's picked to speed our end. Rookies often draw the riskiest jobs. The vessel quakes as its warp drives ignite. The plunge into the immaterium feels routine these days, the vertigo, the sense of existence fraying at the edges. But this voyage differs from my initial plunge into the eye of terror, smoother, more precise. The Dark Mechanicum might be apostates, but their expertise is beyond question. Across the bond, I share the trip not only from my vantage, but through the eyes of every knight in the group. Certain ones thrive on the warp's touch, their tainted bodies humming with the current surging nearby. Others bear it with grim resolve, fixated on the fray ahead. A handful, myself included, nurse uncertainties, though they conceal them more adeptly than I. The Knight Commander registers it all, tweaking his strategy accordingly, shifting assignments according to our warp reactions. I'm relocated from the vanguard to a side assault, teamed with a battle-hardened ally whose psyche seems more anchored than average, a safeguard to prevent my hesitations from undermining the core strike. Relief should wash over me, the spot's safer, odds of lasting longer, but dread builds instead. Not terror of dying, which would free me, but terror of my deeds upon hitting the Forge World. How many steadfast Imperial souls will I slay this day? How many additional visages will swell the specters flickering in my visor? The craft lurches free of the warp, a jolt that would have toppled my mortal frame. In this merged shell, Oathbreaker autocorrects, steadying against the abrupt slide back to material reality. Over the network, I feel the warband's thrill, the itch for combat, the craving for ruin. The Forge World sprawls before us. Across the display screens, a world shrouded in the haze of factories sprawls below, its landscape overrun by production plants, processing facilities, and construction hubs. The space-based armaments are reacting to our presence right away. Gun emplacements locking onto our vessel, patrol fighters scrambling from orbital platforms, yet they're sluggish and scattered. Our craft plunges through the upper layers, braking hard, zeroing in on a drop site close to a major industrial hub. Collision. The vessel doesn't settle gently, it slams down. Built to endure the punishment, it fragments in a deliberate way that shields the hold from harm. Loading ramps deploy, hatches burst wide, and the warriors of our raiding force step out onto the factory planet's crust. What we find is a nightmare of mechanized toil. The atmosphere hangs heavy with toxins, sightlines cut off after just a short distance. The terrain isn't earth or dirt, but endless sheets of fused debris and refuse, built up over ages. Towering edifices rise through the murk, outlines of fabrication spires, fuel distillation plants, metal smelting works. Sirens wail throughout the facility, alerting everyone to intruders. Laborers flee in panic, hunting for cover or ways out. Guard units rally, but their gear is laughably inadequate against our kind. Scattered shots bounce off our plating without a mark. Basic firearms that can't even mar the finish. Then the real guardians show up. The Knights of Tyrannus, an ancient and honored lineage sworn to safeguard this industrial realm. They stride out from bays carved into the bigger edifices, their casings shine with the Empire's glory, armaments humming to life as they array themselves to block our path to the key assets. Via the link, I sense the Knight Leader's thrill. This is his true goal. Beyond the tactical prize of the planet, it's the thrill of clashing with equals, pitting our group against the Empire's elite warriors. He relays commands not through speech but ideas, strategies blooming in our collective mind. The raiding force advances in flawless unison, every warrior aware of its duty, its spot, its marks. The Empire's knights unleash controlled barrages, their fire pinpointed to inflict maximum harm with least risk. It's a ballet of behemoths, a thunderous duel of engines that rattles the earth and scorches the sky. Oathbreaker and I stick to our route, circling to hit the Empire's flank. My seasoned comrade takes point, his machine etched with Khorne's fury, its shell pitted from endless fights. We meet light opposition initially, guard squads too feeble to challenge, machine sentries too frail to breach our defenses. Then, we swing around a huge heat transfer unit and come upon a solitary Tyrannus Knight. It blocks a reinforced gateway, obviously warding an entrance to something essential. Its frame is fancier than the others, adorned with sanctity marks and merit emblems that hint at years of loyal Empire service. My comrade surges ahead without pause, his Khorne-anointed blades craving a real test. The Empire Knight holds firm, its main gun blasting, striking my comrade dead center. The blow reels him back, plating splintering from the focused blast, yet he stays upright. His drive propels him onward, smashing into the foe with impact that buckles armor on both sides. They wrestle up close, blade engines roaring, treads grinding for grip on the steel floor. At such range, neither can wield their long guns effectively. The fight boils down to brute power and technique. Over the connection, I detect the Khorne Knight's savage hunger, his delight in matching a true rival. I ought to leap in, swing the odds our way. That's my function in the group. Yet I pause, observing these colossal engines locked in struggle. The Empire Knight battles with exactness born of long years, every action planned, streamlined, free of excess. My comrade assaults with wild mania, his strikes mighty but growing erratic as the frenzy grips him. Briefly, I recall my days of such control. Back when I served House Fortan, shielding Empire domains from dangers like the one I've turned into. The thought sharpens my focus, a sensation lost since my betrayal. The Empire Knight seizes advantage. Its chainsword exploits a flaw in my comrade's shell, driving into the innards below. My comrade bellows, a mix of agony and bliss, the torment only stoking his zeal for Khorne. He clamps his limbs around the Empire Knight, pinning it tight, even as the weapon burrows further into his core. I foresee his plan before it unfolds, his core restraints release, energy surging past limits. He's plotting to drag his foe down with him in one last spectacular blast, a sacrifice to placate his deity and claim his spot in the twisted paradise revered by Khorne's devotees. I ought to retreat, slip beyond the explosion's reach, yet here I am, surging ahead instead, my thermal cannon locked not on the Imperial Knight, but on my comrade. Oathbreaker pushes back fiercely. The clashing directives spark a brief freeze in our fused frame. That's all the opening the Imperial Knight needs to spot my advance and read it all wrong. He lets go of my ally and swings his battle cannon toward me. The projectile slams into Oathbreaker's shoulder, ripping apart plating and framework, almost hacking the limb clean off. Agony surges through my nerves, carrying with it an odd wave of ease. This hurt is pure, straightforward, born of battle, not the rot eating at us. It's like a form of pardon. My companion, caught off guard by the Imperial Knight's abrupt pullback, reels away. His core keeps ramping up toward meltdown. Any Knight operator would recognize the warning signs instantly. The Imperial Knight spots them as well. He attempts to withdraw, creating space ahead of the impending burst. I commit to my choice. Oathbreaker battles me at every turn, our combined chassis lurching and stuttering as we grapple for dominance. But my determination burns fiercer than it has in ages, ignited by the sharp insight of recalling my former self. I propel us right into the gap between my ally and the Imperial Knight. Then I pivot to confront the Khorne zealot. Our thermal cannon unleashes its fury, the ray hitting his core casing square on. For an instant, silence reigns. Then, rather than the devastating rupture he craved, his reactor just fades to nothing. The intense heat triggered a meltdown of another sort, a total blackout instead of oblivion. He locks in place, every function halted, a monument amid the chaos of war. The Imperial Knight pauses, plainly baffled by the scene unfolding before him. One chaos knight turning on another, averting what promised to be shared doom. It clashes with every lesson he's absorbed about beings like us. I exploit his bewilderment to move. Oathbreaker's Vox arrays hum alive, transmitting over an Imperial channel I have no business recalling yet somehow do. When my voice breaks through, it's scarcely recognizable, robotic, warped, yet coherent. I reveal my identity, my past, my descent into darkness. I speak of the tournaments, the warband, the Knight Commander, and his scheme for this forge world. I hand him all the intel required to stage a solid counter and shield as many souls as he can. He absorbs it quietly, his armaments fixed on me, obviously wary this might be some cunning ploy. I can't fault him for that. In his shoes, I'd suspect the same. "Once I'm done," he responds. His tone rings pure, free from taint, the sound of someone unwavering in duty and loyalty. He questions, "Why? Why turn against my fresh overlords? Why aid the Imperium I renounced?" I lack a reply that would convince him. No epic tale of atonement, no abrupt homecoming to the Imperial ranks, merely a flash of insight, an opportunity to set one act straight amid countless errors, a quiet rebellion against endless bondage. He appears to grasp it, even if full comprehension eludes him. He urges me to depart, to flee as far from the forge sprawl as I can. He won't grant me clemency, he explains, but he can offer a brief window before alerting his superiors to my whereabouts. It's kindness beyond my worth. I start to withdraw, seizing the opening he provides. That's when it hits me. The Knight Commander's mind pressing in, no longer pulled by the primary clash, but zeroed in solely on me. He's known of my disloyalty since the shot I took at my partner. He's caught every syllable I uttered to the Imperial Knight, and he's en route. I alert the Imperial Knight, imploring him to escape, summon backup. This adversary is too much for him solo. He wavers, chivalry clashing with strategy. Then, perhaps offering a gesture of respect, he wheels around and vanishes into the factory labyrinth of the forge complex. Now it's just me. Oathbreaker has fallen quiet. His opposition swapped for a brooding retreat. He senses the approach as keenly as I. The Knight Commander brooks no treachery. My demise will drag on, excruciating. My awareness held intact to endure every instant of my disassembly. Flight might tempt me, but no corner of the stars lies outside his grasp. Resistance would end swiftly. All that's left is to meet my fate with the scraps of honor I still possess. The Knight Commander materializes from the haze, his colossal silhouette overshadowing Oathbreaker like a knight towers over a mortal. His plating shows new scars from combat, proof of the tyrannous knight's stubborn stand. Yet he advances unhindered, all mechanisms humming at optimal output despite the injuries. He halts nearby, scanning me with auspex that pierces shell, tissue, and essence without mercy. Through the net we're okay, I sense his consciousness brushing against my own, probing my ideas, recollections, and drives. I make no effort to fight it. It's futile anyway. What emanates from him isn't fury, but intrigue. My disloyalty represents a fresh twist for him, an anomaly after countless ages commanding his warband. The warriors he enlists are utterly shattered, their resolve absorbed into their demon engines, their human essence dwindled to faint echoes. But I'm defying not only my machine's urges, but his explicit order. He communicates not via the Vox, but straight into my psyche, his ideas crashing in with sharp precision and power. He inquires about my goals. One loyalist knight alerted, one corrupted knight sidelined. It won't alter the fight's result. The forge world will crumble. Its assets will fuel the endless conflict. I offer nothing but honesty. I never aimed to shift the tide. I moved because, for the initial occasion since my descent, I could. And in that instant, I recalled the essence of Jorek Vorten, beyond merely piloting Oathbreaker. The Knight Commander ponders this. Then, unexpectedly, he pulls back from my thoughts, cutting my link to the grid. The abrupt quiet is overwhelming, the void without the other knights' minds hitting like a tangible blow. For the first time in ages that stretch like eternities, I'm solitary in my skull, with just Oathbreaker as companion. The Knight Commander pivots aside, seemingly dismissing me from his focus. He has a victory to claim, a forge world to seize. A single flawed knight doesn't merit his ongoing scrutiny. He'll address me in due time. Or maybe he figures the severed tie to the network suffices as penalty. For a knight used to perpetual unity with his fellows, such solitude would surely torment. Yet for me, it's freedom. The voices that tormented me endlessly, those of my overlords and my casualties, dim to a remote murmur. My mind is mine alone, sharp as it hasn't been since my corruption. Oathbreaker rouses, his awareness nudging mine. He's bewildered, thrown off by the rift from the network. He craves guidance, intent, anything to occupy the emptiness from the Knight Commander's retreat. In his bewilderment, his barriers are weaker than ever. I grasp the chance. For the first instant since our bonding, I counter his grip, not clashing for supremacy, but pursuing equilibrium. A genuine bond, not the lopsided dynamic we've known, where he swelled in might while I withered. Astonishingly, he yields. Maybe he's weary of our endless strife too. Maybe in his mechanical fashion, he's grown to cherish the scraps of my humanness, or maybe he just perceives no other path, marooned on this foe-ridden forge world, threats encircling us. Regardless of why, we forge a truce, no one wholly dominant, no one wholly yielding. A union born of urgency, for the moment at least. United, we start advancing, charting a route through the factory sprawl, steering clear of both the Imperial Guards and our old warband. We lack strategy, no goal in sight. Endurance looks improbable, atonement out of reach. But after more time than I can fathom, a spark of optimism stirs in me. Not for absolution or reclaiming the past. Those routes are sealed to me eternally. But for a conclusion, I select myself, instead of one imposed by the ruinous powers or their minions. Sirens wail throughout the forge expanse. Clashes resound from various fronts. The result hangs in doubt, though I wager the Knight Commander will fulfill his aims. He's schemed with such meticulousness, armed with such depth, that no rushed stand, however brave, can thwart him. But that's beyond my worries now. My conflicts, both for the Imperium and opposed to it, have concluded. What's left is a voyage without defined end. A trek across a cosmos that holds no spot for my kind. Not holy knight, not holy demon engine. Not steadfast, not turncoat. Maybe no atonement awaits one who's plummeted so deep. Maybe no mercy for the horrors I've wrought in service to deities I scarcely revered. But perhaps, if not serenity, then a close that holds some modest significance. As Oathbreaker and I navigate the charred wreckage of the Forge world, I reflect on the trails that brought me to this juncture. The decisions taken, the vows shattered, the existences ruined. I can't reverse a bit of it. I can merely press on, step by step, toward whatever lies ahead for a knight without lineage, a lord without title, a spirit without redemption. The Forge world's dying sun pierces the factory haze, stretching dark silhouettes over the steel terrain. Before us stretches the wilds, the planet's uncharted zones where even the Mechanicus seldom treads. It's as fitting a course as any. Oathbreakers. The drives are impaired, yet still viable to propel us distant from the Imperium and chaos, if only temporarily. The coming day will deliver fresh conflicts, decisions, and outcomes of its own. Yet right now, nothing matters but the ensuing stride, the following inhale, the instant pulse of a life that endures amid the chaos. No absolution arrives just yet, but maybe this marks the initial stretch of a journey toward it, or simply one more winding diversion along the path to ruin. In any case, the decision rests with me. For the first instant since those murmurs echoed from the alloy, the decision is mine. And within that resolve, no matter if it guides to deliverance or downfall, I reclaim a liberty I had deemed vanished for good.